All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're actually stepping away from the grand battles and the fiery skies for a minute. Instead, we're going to look purely at the economic ledger of a looming civil war and the devastating impact it has on the small folk.
This quote from a petitioner named Sylvie just perfectly captures our focus today. It highlights the profound human cost of war that falls squarely on the shoulders of everyday people. Because it's not just about swords and shields, is it? It's about storehouses and starvation.
So, we're going to objectively look at the petitions brought before both Aegon and Rhaenyra. We aren't taking sides in the political conflict here. Instead, we're mapping the very real economic shockwaves rippling out from both courts' war preparations. Section 1. The burden of ruling. Hearing the petitions. Both King Aegon and Queen Rhaenyra are facing the exact same fundamental challenge right now. They're forced to hear these desperate pleas from their subjects while simultaneously preparing for an incredibly costly conflict. Whether it's a shepherd before Aegon or a weaver before Rhaenyra, the crown is suddenly the sole arbiter of survival for the working class. And the petitions are grim. We're looking at massive disruptions in the supply chain. Livestock seized, crucial trade lines cut, raw material costs surging, and local food sources completely vanishing. These specific, dire grievances paint a crystal-clear picture of an economy already buckling under the pressure of war. Let's break down exactly why this is happening. Section 2. Feeding the dragons, the resource stream. The crown's most powerful weapons, the dragons, are literally draining resources from the absolute poorest citizens. Take Gerard, a shepherd who petitions King Aegon. He reports that a staggering 1/10 of his entire flock has been taken by the crown, right on the cusp of winter, just to sustain the dragons for their increased activity. And taking those sheep to feed dragons, well, it doesn't just hurt the shepherd, it triggers this massive economic chain reaction. A weaver at Rhaenyra's court complains of a great shortage in fleece because the sheep are gone. Immediately after, a butcher steps up to point out that this leaves them with absolutely no meat to trade. So one single military requisition cripples 3 separate trades. Faced with this complete disaster, the small folk are just desperately trying to innovate. A weaver presents a highly logical question to Rhaenyra's court, trying to find a practical solution to the crown's heavy-handed requisitioning. If the dragon absolutely must eat the sheep, can the weaver at least have the wool first? This brings up a truly fascinating contrast in leadership constraints. Aegon's initial, kind of easily swayed empathy leads him to promise the shepherd his sheep back, but his advisors quickly correct him with logistical reality. I mean, if you return one herd, everyone asks, and the dragons starve. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra faces systemic pushback from her own advisors regarding royal tradition. When she suggests opening the Kingswood for commoners to hunt rabbits, she's flat out told it would offend her royal forebears. So both monarchs are basically trapped by the mechanics of their own institutions. Section 3. Funding the war machine. Blockades and scorpions. Beyond just feeding the beasts, both monarchs are dealing with the immense logistical nightmare of funding and supplying a literal war machine. The petitions reveal a realm completely paralyzed by military prep. Trade routes from Essos are cut off, meaning essential food preservation items like salt are incredibly scarce just as winter approaches. Furthermore, skilled laborers are pulled right from their livelihoods. Hunters are conscripted to be archers, and smiths are struggling under the surging cost of iron required to build defensive scorpion weapons. The financial toll here is just incredibly steep. To put it in perspective, a weaver guild explicitly requests an investment of 500 golden dragons from Queen Rhaenyra just to restore their depleted resources. It's a massive sum, showing exactly how deep the economic hole truly is for the working class. So this directly pits the survival needs of the crown against the survival needs of the people. It creates a practically impossible balancing act. The crown absolutely needs dragons fed and weapons built to survive the war, but the small folk need flocks and salt to survive the winter. So how do the monarchs actually react to this economic pressure cooker? Well, when told of the salt blockade from Essos causing shortages, Aegon's immediate response is brute force. He declares he'll just send his largest dragon to burn the blockade to ash. This perfectly illustrates a leadership style focused on direct, aggressive military solutions rather than delicate economic maneuvering or diplomacy. Section 4. The High-born Hoarders. Class Inequality.
But the war machine isn't the only issue here. Class inequality is actively deepening this crisis. A petitioner named Sylvie brings a pretty devastating point to Queen Rhaenyra, revealing that solving a military blockade doesn't actually solve the economic crisis for the commoners. Sylvie bravely points out that the noble lords are completely exploiting the wartime scarcity. Even when a blockade is lifted and trade routes begin to reestablish, the rich simply buy up the inventory. And notice, Sylvie isn't asking for coin. She's demanding justice from Rhaenyra, explicitly calling upon her title as a champion of her people. This creates a vicious cycle of systemic inequality that Rhaenyra is now being asked to dismantle. The war creates scarcity, the highborn use their wealth to insulate themselves by hoarding what little is left, and the lowborn are the ones left to starve. Rhaenyra has to somehow navigate this while relying on those very same highborn lords to support her military campaign.
Section 5. The cost of the crown, the cascading crisis. When you lay it all out, it becomes undeniably clear that both courts are trapped in the exact same paradox. Aegon promises Hugh the Smith that he will be paid well for building scorpions, while simultaneously draining the working class of the resources they need to survive. Rhaenyra acknowledges Sylvie's plea for justice against the nobles, while desperately needing those nobles' armies. Both monarchs need the commoners to win, but the act of fighting the war is destroying those very commoners. And this isn't just an observation from the outside looking in. The monarchs know it. Aegon says this directly to Hugh the Smith, acknowledging the absolute foundational necessity of the working class in this royal dispute. Without the smiths, the weavers, the shepherds, and the butchers, the whole war machine grinds to an absolute halt. And so I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've mapped out the undeniable economic toll, the hoarding by the rich, and the devastating drain of the dragons on the poorest citizens. Based on what we've seen today, is a war for the throne inherently a war against the small folk? It's a fascinating question, and definitely one to keep in mind as you think about the true cost of power. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.